Hi, and thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Lennart Alexandre, and I'm the publisher of AR Media International. And in that role includes also to be the editor-in-chief for both Detector magazine and the news portal securityworldmarket.com. The topic of today's discussion is airport security and intelligent security systems. What are the security challenges for small airports, and how can intelligent systems be utilized, and how can they contribute to a secure and effective environment? So it's my pleasure to let the three security professionals and experts in the panel to introduce themselves, starting with Florian Matusek.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Florian. I have actually several years in video analytics background. I've been in the market for 15 years now. I've been doing my studies before exactly in this area, my master's, and then also my PhD in Finland in this space. So I've seen this video analytics market for quite some time. And today I'm the product group director for video analytics at Genetec. And what it means is that I'm responsible for Genetec's own video analytics portfolio, but I'm also dealing and helping our ecosystem of video analytics partners to really make sure that our customers can choose from a variety of functionality to solve their challenges that they have.
Nikolai Berglund.
Yeah, and my name is Nikolai, and I am the CEO and founder of IP Security. And we are a security integrator company here in Sweden, but we have customers throughout Scandinavia. And we're specialized in high-end IP-based solutions for airports, critical infrastructure, and other company customers that we have currently.
And then we have Niklas Kronberg.
Hi, Niklas Kronberg. I'm the security manager at the Angelholm Airport. And I've worked at the airport since 2000, so I predate 9/11. And it was after 9/11 that I got involved in the aviation security. And apart from that, I have been directly involved in the design of the security at the Scandinavian mountain airports in Sälen. And that has been a very enriching professional experience.
So the first question that comes to my mind is that video analytics is what I think about very much when we talk about intelligent systems. And video analytics has been around for a long time and often being criticized for not holding the promises made by its suppliers. So what is the current state of video analytics, Florian, and what applications are being deployed most?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that video analytics has been around for some time. I mentioned before I've been in this space for 15 years. And if I think back 10 years ago, back then it was still a very big hype. It was the days of video analytics where people thought that anything you see in 24 back then or CSI, you can do and solve with video analytics. And that's where many of the systems were deployed. But quickly, customers found out that it's not like that. Video analytics can solve a very specific problem that you define, especially 15 years ago. So there was a little bit of a downturn, and people didn't really trust the technology anymore so much. And now, in the maybe last 2 to 3 years, this has really picked up again, and this is really a trend now. And video analytics is at the top of the mind of many customers due to technology advancements. But what I'm also usually telling people when I'm doing presentations and so on, I go to the board and I draw a huge circle on the board and say, okay, this is what customers are expecting or wanting from video analytics, and this what it was 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, only a tiny dot of those expectations could be filled. But today, these expectations are still the same, or sometimes they're even bigger. And new technology can do much more, but they can still only fit part of these expectations. So it's as important as ever to define what you want to do exactly with video analytics. Then it can help you a lot, and it's becoming increasingly a very important tool in security installations. And to answer your questions about which one of those are deployed the most, if I look at all of our customers and what people are asking me, I have to say perimeter protection is the #1 application of video analytics, where you want to automatically detect if somebody enters an area, if somebody climbs over a fence, climbs over a wall, and then trigger an alert based on that. And I think the reason for that is because the application is very clearly defined, you know what it's supposed to do, and video analytics can actually deliver on these expectations quite well.
So what kind of applications of video analytics do you see outside of security then?
So yes, security is very important as a market for video analytics. But increasingly in recent years, this has been augmented by applications in operations and intelligence. And what I mean by that is to use video analytics, for example, to enhance maintenance runs, to optimize maintenance runs, to add video analytics to provide statistics, how many people are in an area, how many people are going into an area, and all of that, as much as possible, reusing your existing security infrastructure. So you already have your infrastructure in place, and now customers are looking how can they leverage this existing infrastructure by adding analytics, by automatically analyzing this data that the cameras are recording already.
It seemed like video analytics can do a lot and can solve a lot of problems, but it must be also limitations of using analytics. Where do we see it evolving?
Yes, absolutely. And still today it is like that video analytics and many other technologies actually are not what we call an exact science. So you will never have a video analytics system that will have 100% accuracy, because in video images, always things might happen. You might have bad weather, your camera might break down, you might have animals or whatever. There might be many situations where the system is being tricked into detecting something, even though there is not. So there will never be a 100% accurate system, even though they have become much more accurate than before. So it's even more important to manage these alarms and manage these limitations that are there. And you have to be aware that they are there.
So Nikolai, as a system integrator, how do you see on this subject limitations of the video analytics?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to talk with the customer before deploying a video analytics system to see where their expectations are, but also look at the surrounding areas on where you're going to install the cameras. Could be sort of a site survey, and if you're doing this and also describing what you will do with the cameras, if you do this properly, you will reduce a lot of false alarms, but you will also make sure that the customer's expectations are more in line what the technology can provide. And there's also an important thing that we often see talking to customers is that even if an alarm is set, it doesn't mean that it's a false alarm. It can be actually it's a person that crosses a line, for example, but it is an alarm, but they don't want that alarm. So then it's more about working with the staff or the people that you don't have to cross that line, because if you do that, you generate an alarm, or can we change the rule settings on that specific alarm? So there's different ways on how to work with the analytics and reduce the amount of alarms. So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
So what you can deliver to the end user, do you think it's in line with their expectations, or do they have higher or lower expectations?
I mean, I'd say I base this a lot on I mean, my background is from running a monitoring station here in Sweden. So I've seen the worst possible cases. I mean, where we have operators being flushed by false alarms, and this is not alarms caused by a person. It's due to bad weather. It can be a bad position of the camera. It can be the wrong type of camera for the location, and so on. So I still see it as if you do your homework before you install something, I'd say you will be able to somehow meet the expectations of the customer. I can't speak for everyone, but I just know how the process we have implemented in our company before deploying video analytics.
Okay. Well, speaking of the use of analytics in a use case scenario, Niklas, you were the end user in this company, and you work with Nikolai, of course. Can you provide examples of how you have used this technology in your airports?
Yes, thank you. We started out with analytics before we met with Nikolai with ordinary cameras, and that caused a lot. That caused a lot of false alarms due to weather, because we use it mainly outdoors for perimeter protection. But now we use video analytics with the thermal cameras, and it's much more suitable for the outdoor environment. It's not as affected by rain or darkness or fog as an ordinary camera. And we also use analytics technology on radars for where we have a longer open area that doesn't need the thermal cameras advantages with a very narrow zone that can trigger an alarm. The radars need a lot more space because they are not as accurate. So you really have to properly implement the technologies that you want to use to lessen the false alarm rate.
So are these perimeter surveillance used for primary intrusion?
Yeah, we use it for intrusion detection primarily. Yeah.
And can you explain why you're not using analytics or in indoor?
Well, mainly it's because we don't have the need for it indoors, because we have a solid, it's either a wall or a door that is the perimeter protection, and therefore we don't need the video analytics in the same fashion that we need it outdoors, because, yeah.
Mm. So Nikolai, what do you think? Would it be very useful indoors?
Analytics will be more useful indoors if more airports start seeing the benefits of it and not just see it as a security tool, but that they also start seeing it as a revenue and business improvement tool. It can be detecting long queues. It can be using occupancy analytics to see where do we have a lot of people at our airport, and for that potentially putting more commercial in a specific area and so on. And also resources, you can make sure that the right amount of people are at the same location all the time, and if not, you can set off an event to the customer or the security guard company at the airport, for example. So there's a lot of use cases of analytics that we have not seen. I mean, we as an integrator, and of course, I think Genetec also as a development company, we would love to see the customers start using this more, because the technology has improved over the years. But it's more about having the customers understand what the technology can do for them.
Mm. And a basic question, Niklas, can you just provide examples of security issues need to be addressed at airports? What is the common threat?
Yeah, first of all, an airport sees the same issues as society in general because of the large amount of people that move through an airport. So you will see the mentally ill, you will see drug problem, and you will see criminals. But most of all, it is to counter international terrorism, since commercial flights remain an attractive target. And and with that comes the insider threat. And that is where I see that technology can be used to our advantage to lessen the human factor impact.
Mm. So now you are the security manager of a small airport. What do you think is the difference between a large and small airports in terms of security work?
Yeah, one thing is that at large airports, you tend to have dedicated staff, whereas small airports tend to have rotating shifts. For example, in Angelholm Airport, our staff rotates. So one day they will work in the security area, and one day they will be baggage handling, and the next day they can work in the check-in counter. And larger airports have a larger budget, whereas small airports need best bang for the buck and always trying to make best out of a limited budget.
Nikolai, I believe you have some experience from larger airports as well as a system integrator. What do you have to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, like Niklas said, there is a difference also from a technology perspective on how the airports are implementing technology. The smaller airports are forced to be implementing a higher level of security equipment and they really need to be sharp on their lines. Since the areas are quite small, it's often the area around where the planes are, where you park the planes. That's more like a small airport, critical restricted security area. While if you take a large airport, their security line is at the fence. So there's a huge difference. We're talking about a couple of 100 meters of like virtual fence line that the small airports need to have. And then you have this kilometer-long fence line that the large airports have. And it's impossible unless you have really a military-grade radar equipment. Then you could potentially detect any intrusion at a large airport. So so that's one of the. So I would actually say that the smaller airports are forced to be more technically advanced than the bigger ones, due to what Niklas just said. So yeah, that's at least what we've seen at the customers we have.
Mm. The security technology development runs fast, and it must be a jungle out there with different solutions. So what is the challenges for you, Niklas, when trying to find security solutions?
Yeah, I would like to mention a few. Technology is not always able to cover our needs and not adapting to our context. For example, thermal cameras are supposedly not affected by rain, but due to our weather phenomena in Angelholm, where the rain is always from the side, we'd be forced to fabricate rain covers for the thermal cameras, since there is no rain cover to buy with the camera. And yeah, so you have to always try to improve and adapt. And you always have to take into account that the passengers and their behavior can be unpredictable. So we always have to try to anticipate as much as possible and implement mitigating measures for what cannot be anticipated. And also that everything you do, you have to take into effect the passenger experience. You cannot implement something that will give them a bad experience. So everything must work together. CCTV and data interpretation, behavior detection, and of course trained personnel for it to work flawlessly.
in what way are intelligent camera systems useful, and what services from these systems are important and applicable at airports?
Okay, yeah, the intelligence systems are very important, as Niklas said, to prevent outside threats such as terrorism, insider threats. It could be the staff wanting to leave something somewhere where it shouldn't be, but it can also be using it for revenue optimization. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to use it.
And we talked very much about video analytics, but in addition to camera systems, are there other intelligent security technologies available, and what functions do they perform? Access control is one example, burglar alarms and fire alarms. What can they offer?
Yeah, I mean, this is a quite interesting part, and this is where we need to step into the future as a business. I think we see a lot of analog systems out there, especially the access control systems, and as we see it, we see there's a huge benefit from going from an analog-based access control system to an IP-based. And this is kind of like the whole spirit of our company, is to strive for an IP security industry. And this gives you a lot of new opportunities that you didn't have before. You can do a lot more things when you with the door environment. For example, you can reset the entire door environment, everything from the readers to the lock, just by toggling a port in your PoE switch, for example. On the old systems, you need to have a guy going out there pulling the plug in some way. Also monitoring the door environments if you have any issues. It can be also camera to access control connectivity, that you have an event at a door or a camera that creates an event. It can be too many people in the room, then you turn off the access control reader. You're not allowed, and especially in these times, it's very important to make sure you're not too many inside a location. But also building automation systems, getting information. There's so many data points at an airport today that could be of interest of monitoring. And also if you integrate with, for example, ground radar, I mean, and not the security radar, it can be the ground radar of the airport that have the ID of all the planes. You can also, through the systems now, actually what Genetec are providing, for example, take the plane flight data, match it with the AODB data. So that's where all the data about all the flights are at an airport, just to explain that shortly. And then you can actually tell the system that this is a friendly threat. And then you're reducing the amount of alarms by using intelligent data from the systems. And this is very interesting to see this development. And I think that's the future, and using data points to talk to each other and use it together.
Yeah, I would actually add to that and confirm your point. You're absolutely right that today, I think the intelligence is not so much in the sensor anymore, in detecting single things, but the intelligence is how you combine all this data to create actionable information and intelligence on what is happening out there. And you mentioned a few examples combining video analytics and access control. In the future, you will be able to combine all these different kinds of data that is coming into a system in order to detect things. So you can detect patterns, you can combine different things. Another example is tailgating detection, where you combine access control and at the same time use video analytics to count how many people are going in. So you can detect if somebody didn't badge in and still entered. And there are many, many other examples. It's really about combining all the information you have in your system and trying to find this little insights that are really interesting to you while ignoring all the rest that are not interesting.
Mm. I have just gotten email from someone asking these questions. How big are problems with drones in the area of an airport, of course? And what readiness do you have? And what do you do when you discover a drone entering the area and jeopardizing security? How is it rejected? And probably Nikolai would answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, we have the big regulation talk here. This is where it gets kind of tricky. Is that the airports are not. They're not. It's not a mandatory thing to detect drones with technical systems. Technical drone systems it's quite expensive too. I mean, yeah, there are some vendors I know trying to sell drone detection equipment, but it's like video analytics again. Like there are good systems and there are not so good systems, and therefore getting the system that really suits the airport's needs, that's very expensive. So until the regulators are telling the airports that you need to detect the drones, I don't see that too many airports will buy it. Some bigger airports have invested because of Gatwick and other incidents that it also damages their revenue when planes are prevented from landing or taking off. So I think yeah, that and people tend to not listen to the regulations we have. Even if the Swedish Transport Agency is saying that you're not allowed to fly with a drone over restricted airspace, we still have drone sightings at Arlanda, Bromma, other airports. So something needs to happen, because a drone could be equivalent to a bird strike, for example. And just to explain, bird strike is a bird in the engine, and that normally causes the engine to totally fail or even explode. And that creates a very dangerous situation. So it is a big safety issue with the drones.
Mm. And what about Angelholm Airport? How do you look at the threat from drones?
Well, yeah, luckily we are not situated as close to a city center as some of the airports. So we are as far not as affected by drones in the area. And as Nikolai says, the regulations are a struggle because, as he says, it can be quite expensive. And if it is not mandatory by law, it's a challenge to accommodate it to the budget, especially when you don't see a direct threat for the moment.
It should also be said that it's also very unclear whose responsibility is it. Is it the airport? Is it the police? Is it the Swedish Transport? I mean, there's a lot of things that needs to be investigated before.
Okay, so I mean the terrorist threat is, as you mentioned earlier, a big issue anyway, and of course drones could be a threat that way too. Now we have the pandemic, and that's another threat to citizens. So what about now the airport is opening up more and more? And how do they work to prevent the spread of infections, and how can security technology help to reduce the risk of infections? Can you answer that, Florian?
Yeah, sure. So the pandemic, of course, brought to many customers challenges in how to comply to all the regulations out there. And Video Analytics has been trying to solve some of these issues. One of the things you can do is you can implement people counting technology, maybe even on your existing infrastructure, your existing cameras, to count how many people go in a certain area, for example, bathrooms. And based on the amount of people that are going in, you can schedule disinfectant runs. So you can say, okay, every 50 people that use the bathroom, I go out again and disinfect the bathroom. And it's much more efficient than actually going there on a regular basis and checking how much has it been used, because you can optimize your operations this way. So that's one way. Another way, we mentioned access control before. We actually released a new report that allows you to find people that have been confirmed to be to have the disease, and the report will give you a likelihood of which people this person has been interacting with based on when they badged in and when they used access control. So again, that's a benefit of IP-based access control, where you have this data in your system already, and you can reuse that to get this additional insights. And finally, another solution that is out there is occupancy management. We find now in many areas that there's a certain requirement how many people are supposed to be in one area. For example, one person every 10 square meters. And using occupancy management system, you can actually count how many people are in the area. So based on how many people go in, how many people go out. And based on that, you can do automatic actions. So for example, you can automatically close the door if there are too many people, or you just flash a sign that they shouldn't go in anymore until the next person can come in. So this allows you also to comply to the safety regulations. And there's some other examples out there, and I think the industry itself is trying to find the right solutions to all of these issues, because the situation is really new for all of us.
The last, let's say, 5-6 years, everybody's talking about AI, and I know that Genetec like to speak about IA, which is intelligent automation. How has this AI buzz changed video analytics and their reliability? Not only the buzz, of course, the development of intelligent technology.
Well, it has changed. It has changed it a lot, and AI is responsible for this current wave of really this interest in video analytics that's coming now. The reason why we don't like to talk about AI so much is because artificial intelligence somehow implies that there is some kind of intelligence like we humans have, and this is just not the case. In the end, AI is a type of technology that helps you to detect things, to detect patterns, to detect people, and to make video analytics much more efficient and accurate, and also easy to deploy than before. But in the end, it's just a technology like many other technologies out there. It doesn't provide intelligence by itself. It's really a tool that brings video analytics to the next level. And what it has done is that it has opened up video analytics applications to many more use cases and many more customers than before. So before, only a tiny small amount of use cases really made sense for video analytics, and this tiny amount today got much bigger through AI. But we have to make sure that we understand that that artificial intelligence is not the be-all, end-all solution to all of our challenges that we have. We still have to rely on traditional security, physical security tools, about using operators to manually verify alarm, about physical barriers, physical measures, access controls. All of these tools are still very, very important and are not falling away just because we have AI. AI is, in the end, it's a tool that helps the operator to perform his or her job, but it for sure cannot replace them.
Finally, going back to the pandemic, for the last 3-4 months, people have changed their behavior because of the pandemic, of course, and boost the digitalization. So do you think that this new behaviors and the need of social distance, etc., and work on remote will boost the market for intelligent security systems? And probably Nikolai, can you answer that one?
Yeah, we think so. I mean, we have already seen an increase of existing technology or services that we already provide today, and that is remote support. A lot more airports are seeing that it's a lot easier to have someone doing it remotely instead of going to the airport. But there's also a lot of other new emerging technology use cases that we will see. For example, you have the checkpoints. Imagine now reopening You cannot stand like this anymore in the checkpoints. You need to have a longer distance. And what does that impact? Yes, you will have longer queues, or you will need to have more checkpoints. And to monitor that, you can, for example, use video analytics to make sure that there's enough space between people. And if not, you can alert the security staff that you need to open one more lane, or someone needs to go down to the lanes and make sure to tell people that you need to keep distance to each other. So there are different technology. UV light is another thing that could come in. So maybe, for example, maybe there's too many people, and then it turns on the UV light to disinfect the trays at the checkpoint. So I mean, that could be used by a camera, for example, telling the system to initiate that. Now we've had 50 people going through the checkpoint. Turn on the UV lights to kill all the bacteria in the trays, for example. So yeah, that's just a very specific case. There are more, of course.
Are you agreeing, Niklas and Florian?
Yeah, I would say so. But as Niklas said, we are just in the beginning on reopening the airports. So I think in time we will see a lot of interesting ideas that can be used.
Yeah, I think it's really a new situation for all of us, and everybody's trying to figure out what is the right way, how to handle this new situation. And I think there will be many systems coming out now that try to help with the safety measures. Maybe not all of them will stay, but a few of them will stay, because it really looks like this kind of situation won't go away so quickly, and it might come again at one point. So I'm pretty sure coming out of this in our new reality, we will have more intelligent systems, more video analytics that support these kind of use cases. And I'm sure this whole crisis will give a push to digitalization efforts, going from analog to IP, and really doing all the projects that have been maybe put off before, that really have to be done now in order to cope with this new situation.
There's just, sorry.
Right.
There's just one thing I want to add to this, cyber security also, not to forget. The more intelligent systems we put in, the more creative people tend to be to avoid those. Just take a mask detection analytics, for example. I mean, if it's not a good solution, I can take a picture from my mobile phone and just show to the camera where I have a mask on, and then I don't have a mask. So it's kind of like, is it really useful then? So it's kind of implementing the right and secure technology too. So you just don't rush just because you want to do something. That's also important to just take it step by step.
Yeah, agreed.
So cybersecurity might be the next theme for a similar webinar, I guess.
Maybe.
Okay, thank you very much for participating, Niklas and Nikolai and Florian. It's been a pleasure for me. It's actually my first webinar I even attended. So, and thank you all participants listening, and be careful and safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.